unfortunately, with just
uh, it's Mon Mothma's HoloNet. We're just posting on it. Welcome back to Mothma News and our 50-day countdown to Andor Season 2. Today's guest, can you please introduce yourself and our topic for today?
Hi, my name is Sahela, and today we're going to talk about some parallels from Andor Season 1 to resistance, specifically Palestine, Palestinian resistance.
Yes. First off, free Palestine now.
Yes, yesterday.
Yes, 2 days ago, last week, several years, decades ago.
Decades ago.
Decades ago. Because colonialism and imperialism, bad.
Yeah.
And as Star Wars fans, we should all know that. So, where shall we begin today?
Yeah, we can I can start off just with generally with Andor Season 1. This, I mean, Star Wars has always been political. I know people say, keep politics out of Star Wars. It's kind of in the name, wars.
Yeah.
It's also been, politics has been pretty transparent in the original movies. George Lucas has talked about it, and Andor is no exception to that. The thing with Andor, though, is that it does focus more on the political side of things while, showing us character journeys and different events and things like that that are happening throughout the universe. But with Andor specifically, it is it's focusing on Cassian Andor and his journey joining the rebels, which ultimately leads to Rogue One and what he, the role that he has there, that then ultimately leads into A New Hope and destroying the Death Star and the Empire falling and all of that. So it is very political. And as I was watching this show, there were so many moments that stood out to me as being as parallels to just resistance fighters all throughout the world, but then Palestine in particular. And given what we've been seeing for, I don't even know how many months now, since October of 2023, on social media, and this has been going on obviously way longer than that, but the world has been a lot more aware and a lot more focused on what's been happening in Palestine over the last year and a half plus. That everything's been going on in Gaza, in the West Bank, so on and so forth. And so I think this, making those parallels now is even more important. And I wrote up a whole thread just after Season 1 finished off back in 2023, was it? I forget the years.
Still end of 2022.
2022.
Yeah.
So I made this thread after the finale of Season 1 and just quickly jotted down some of the things that I had noticed throughout the season. And some of it is really small things, and some of it is really big, impactful things. And even the finale, there's quite a bit there as well. So we can kind of just go through them in no particular order, or just the order that I had thought of them.
And if I remember correctly, at least on Blue Sky, I think it's pinned to your profile.
Yes.
Thread.
Yeah, and on Twitter. I did.
If you haven't read this thread, read it.
We'll go through it today, but
delightful. Yeah.
Or go through at least some of it today. But yeah, I think when I was watching, this is sort of something that's always been in the back of my mind. Me being, me having an Arab background, and also knowing people who are Palestinian, having extended family who's Palestinian. I was aware of what was going on in Palestine really young. And so it's something that you sort of always sort of have in the back of your mind, and news that come out of Palestine, you sort of hear about. And I think I'm trying to remember where in Season 1 it was really clear to me, oh, this is a parallel to Palestine. And if I remember correctly, it was when Skeen tells his story about how the Imperials took over his brother's tree farm. And in my mind, I was that's exactly what happens to Palestinian farmers who have olive tree farms. Literally, though that gets taken away, the family gets kicked out. A lot of times there's violence. Sometimes they're killed in the process. And then what ends up happening is they burn the olive trees down. So it's not even that they want the natural resources that have been around for hundreds or thousands. Some of these olive trees have been around for thousands of years. It's that they just want the land to do whatever, they're just treating the land as a commodity, as a resource that they can do whatever they want with. It's like capitalism at the end of the day. It's exploiting a resource that they want. It's not, like we care about the land and the nature that is there, and we are stewards of this land. And it's something that you see happen time and time again in any colonial project. It happened throughout the US. It happened, while the British was colonizing most of the modern world. It's not just like, hey, this is a piece of land that means something to us. It's like, no, hey, this is a resource that we can exploit and use to our own benefit and do whatever we want with. So, and that has been like a story with Palestinians of having, because a lot of them do historically have owned olive farms, and it's one of the things that for Palestinians is really important to them, and one of the things that they really value. And it's just like a story that you hear from so many Palestinian families, that their family farm got taken and destroyed, and it's really unfortunate. But I think that was the moment where it just like as I was watching, I was like, that's Palestine. Or like that there's like a direct parallel there with Palestine.
And like when you look at it, like, the olive branch being like a symbol of peace, and the destruction of that, it very much is like, we don't like, it's symbolic in a way, and it's not symbolic in a good way. It's like, hey, we know what the symbol of this is, and we want to be rid of that. And I think that that's also, again, something that is yet another link to the way that empires as a whole handle and like go about the colonial project, is destroying those symbols, because symbols are so important to cultures.
And the other thing too is like specifically the olive tree is, I don't know if you know much about them, but they grow really sophisticated root structures where if like the actual tree gets destroyed, it can regrow from the root structure. And so for them to actually destroy an olive tree, it's not just like, hey, cut it down, destroy, burn it, whatever. You're destroying an entire like structure underneath the ground that's taken hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years to develop. And it like, it's crazy the amount of like intentional destruction that goes into destroying something like an olive tree. But it is part of, like you were saying, it is part of the colonial project of like destroying what already exists. And especially when there's like cultural ties and importance to something like this, like you were saying with the olive branch. And it's something that we also saw in Andor happen in Aldani, as well as even, I forget Cassian's home planet name.
Kenari.
Kenari, yeah. So both with Aldani and Kenari, we do see, the invading empire come in and change the landscape of that place. Like with Aldani, obviously we see them not just change like where they're allowed to live and how they live, but also like their religious rituals. And again, I don't even know if that was in my list, but the way that they like limit and try to discourage the Aldani indigenous population from going about their religious practices, and when we see the like the eye is very much, again, another colonial tactic, and we see the empire use that to again take control of the land and also take control of the population and drive them away from the areas of land that they want to take over. And again, that's something that we see happen in Palestine, specifically in Jerusalem, where there's the mosque there, Masjid al-Aqsa, which is a very important historical place for Muslims and Arabs in general, but for Muslims in particular, it's a very important mosque. And the way that they limit Palestinians or anybody really being able to visit, especially around religiously significant days, is again something that you see happen every time there is colonization happening in any place on earth.
Yeah, and like, jumping forward to Rogue One, we see the impact of the Empire on the holy city and on Jeddah, right? And how they have completely taken it over. And the Temple of the Khyber, which is a holy site for so many different like cultural groups and faiths. It's like, oh, this is more desecration of culture. And the Mask of Fear kind of alludes to, there is one guy who is from Jeddah, and he's like, oh, like I see what happens when people put their faith and their money in, religion and all of that. So let's kind of try to do away with that. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of fascist regimes rely on religion as a form of control, either imposing a religion or the removal of religion. And the, you know, all of the things that go with that. Because it's like, yeah, religion is, you know, it can be used for good. Like, it oftentimes is used for good. And yeah, there are people who will use it for ill, but trying to remove the religion from the galaxy or from the world will be a net negative, because there is so much culture that you will lose if you do that.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. And not even just religion, but language. Like, part of culture, like, you've got religion, you've got language, you've got a lot of like visual elements to it as well. And Canary, one of the things that I actually really loved that they did in the show is they didn't give us subtitles for you know, when the kids are speaking with each other, but you could understand the gist of what they were trying to communicate. But that was like, you know, really purposeful, because that language is gone, right? And we don't see older Cassian use it because there's nobody else from his homeworld that's around him, and we don't even know if he still has any of it, you know, left in his mind, because he was so young.
Is also cultural genocide, because speaking as people who are from Canada, like, we know the impact of the cultural genocide of Indigenous populations. Like, the last residential school closed the year before I was born. I have family members who were in residential schools and have that intergenerational trauma, and they feel so disconnected from their culture because they weren't able to practice it, right? And there's a whole bunch that I could talk about with regards to
Please do.
Indigenous cultural genocide, but it really irks me going into a federal election when, admittedly, the government the last 10 years or so has not been perfect, but there has kind of been an element of trying to do better with, you know, with relations with Indigenous people. But now we've got a guy running for prime minister who's like, no, actually, that's not our problem. And it's like, actually it is, because we are still benefiting from the privileges that came with being the oppressors and the invaders and everything that goes with that, right? Like, I, as a white person, have experienced things that, you know, would be 10, 50, 100 times worse if I was Indigenous, right? I have Indigenous friends who have dealt with things that I will never have to deal with because of my inherent privilege of being still essentially a colonizer, right? Which is why, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, land acknowledgements and things like that are a band-aid, but they seek to educate. And that's what they don't want happening in the empire, right? That's what they don't want happening in these fascist regimes. They don't want you to acknowledge your, the systems of power that you benefit from, because then, you know, you might wake up / become woke and side with the people that have had wrong done to them, you know. So
yeah. And the other thing too with the Indigenous peoples here in Canada is, like, the oppression hasn't stopped. Like, it's still ongoing, even though residential schools have been closed. The ongoing oppression in other ways still hasn't stopped, and it is government sanctioned as well. Parts of it are government sanctioned, parts of it is racism throughout, like, you know, our CMP and our, I guess, like, not government, what is it called, like, policing bodies. There's still a ton of rampant racism in so many different ways. And the struggles of Indigenous peoples anywhere, I know I'm focusing on Palestine, but they're and the reason I started off by saying just resistance globally, and you know, Palestine being one example of that, is it's the same struggle every single time. When you have a colonizing force and you have an Indigenous population being colonized, you see these same things happen over and over again. The tactics may change a little bit, the methods may be, you know, refined and adapted. The actual weapons that they use and propaganda that they use evolves and gets worse and worse, but it's still the same thing happening over and over again. And again, with Aldani, like that's just like you were saying, just straight parallel to what was happening with the Indigenous peoples and Canari, in the Indigenous peoples here in Canada. It's the same, and there's a reason that a lot of times when you see oppression happening, the first people who can who stand up and say like I'm with you are Indigenous peoples from other places around the world who have dealt and experienced with similar things historically as well, because they recognize it, they see it, it's so clear. And it's funny how like colonizers will still use like the exact same tactic and it still works time and time again, even though it's so transparent. But that's it is what it is.
Yeah, and like, you know, with that, like with global resistance, like you can go to a protest that is yes centered around Palestine, and you can see the flags of other countries who are also being oppressed, right? Like, and that is beautiful because it's like, yes, and the message remains coherent and consistent because it is one big issue, and so many issues are also part of that. You know, you have like human rights at its core. That's what it is. You have like environmental justice and, you know, so many other things that also impact people that don't even think about it or want to think about it. And it's like, you do realize that this impacts you as well when they're dropping tons and tons and tons of bombs on these communities. That stays in our air, it stays in our water, it will impact you eventually. And so you might as well do something about it now before it becomes too late. And, you know, you hear about like them using different types of technology to like track people and all of that. And I'm like, they are literally working in conjunction with your governments to do that to you. They're detaining citizens for using their freedom of speech or their right to assembly and protest, their right to expression, however it's listed in either your charter or your constitution or whatever it is. That is your right. You have the right to call out your government. We are their bosses. They work for us. So you wouldn't go into a job, be crap at it, and expect that your bosses aren't going to be like, you need to stop doing that. You need to do better. You work for me, right? The employees don't run the joint. The managers do, right? And, you know, that ties into a lot of other like deeply political stories like V for Vendetta, right? Where it's like governments should fear their people. Like, we shouldn't be scared of our governments. And that's what they're trying to do because they know that the more information we have that's circulating globally is giving us that power to fight back against them.
Yes.
Like the periods with the most like evolution of thought have also led to revolutions. And now we live in the information age. There's a reason that the French Revolution came at the same time as the Enlightenment. Now, is chopping people's heads off very enlightened? Not really, but that's not why it's called the Enlightenment.
Good job, though. Listen.
And like speaking of the guillotine, the last use in France was actually near the first Star Wars movie came out, so it's still related.
I did not know that. That is kind of epic.
It's terrifying. It's one of my fun Star Wars. It's
terrifying just how close that was.
Oh, yeah, 48 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Star Wars is getting old. Star Wars is middle-aged.
Yeah.
Star Wars is the same age as Genevieve O'Reilly as well. Oh. But she does not look 48.
Not at all.
The franchise of Star Wars kind of looks 48. Like if you turned the franchise into a person, a person would look probably actually mid-50s, really depressed. And just like half of my children are dumb and insane, and the other half is too smart for their own good.
Oh yeah, you can say it again. Absolutely. Sorry, sorry to derail the point that you were trying to make with revolutions. My bad. But the point that you were trying to make with like every time there's been a revolution, it's been when people have been educated. And the interesting thing about what's happening nowadays is social media. Not necessarily to say that people are educated, but information gets to more people a lot quicker, a lot more accessible, and unfiltered as well. And so the propaganda the propaganda machines that have been around and working well for so long have now had this other force, aka social media, challenge them. And this is something that we haven't really seen at this scale, at least in my lifetime, before. And it's impressive, but it's also scary because then you have social media trying to censor and successfully censoring a lot as well. So like there's just like this fight for information that's happening nowadays. And I want to go back to also what you were saying with the censorship and the surveillance. We're seeing the consequences of that right now in the US with what they're doing to people, like people who are permanent residents, anybody who's like flying out of the US and coming back, or trying to visit the US, and like searching phones and going through social media and anything that like speaks out against Cheeto Man. I refuse to say his name. All of that can get you barred from entering the US.
Yeah.
Like I understand the Constitution only works within the US, but that's still like pretty worrisome.
Yeah.
And the surveillance equipment and surveillance technology that the US is creating, that all gets used. That all gets used in Palestine. That all gets tested in Palestine, and then gets brought over afterwards. Like the cops in America are trained by the Israeli IDF or IOF, rather.
Yeah.
They use the same tactics. Like we saw with when Cassian is on why am I forgetting? Niamos. When Cassian's on Niamos and he gets caught up with the K2 unit, like was it the K2 unit that puts his knee? Sorry, why am I forgetting the series name?
There is a KX unit.
Yes. Sorry, let me re-say that. So we see that with Cassian when he's on Niamos. He's just like walking on the beach, and then all of a sudden he finds himself like being arrested, and then the KX unit like puts his knee like on his head. That is a tactic that the Iowa uses, and it's taught to cops in America, and then they use it against Black people, they use it against protesters, they use it all the time. Like this is like it's all connected. And I don't think it was an accident. Like all of these little things that they're including in Andor that shows like oppression in different ways that we see in the US and we see throughout the world. Like none of this is on accident. Like it's meant for you to be able to watch, and like, yes, this is in a galaxy far, far away, but you see these tactics and you see what's happening, and you side with the rebels. You're against the Empire. And like, if you don't understand what this means in modern day with so many parallels, especially things like this, like I don't know where the disconnect is at this point, but it's so clearly like paralleling like what we're experiencing modern day. And I think it's beautiful that as we're watching, you can clearly like point out and say, oh yeah, like this is happening today in our own societies, in Western societies that are supposed to have democracy and freedom and all of that. And you're seeing parallels to it in in Andor at a time when the fascist empire was in power. Makes you wonder,
Yeah. And I think that like one of the reasons that I enjoy Andor so much is that it's just like, it's like super like political. There are things that are very on the nose, but there's also like things that are slightly more subtle that you're like, oh, I see what you did there. Right. But it's also I just the one thing that I like, one of the things I don't like is like sometimes it just feels too timely. I want to escape, but unfortunately most of the media that I consume is things that are very timely, and they make me think. And I'm like, cool, I'm not shutting my brain off for 5 years because I can't afford to. Like we can't really afford escapism right now, which sucks because it's like we have to constantly be aware in the know, on alert, because, you know, there's a reason why, like, a lot of social media posts from Israel are during waking hours for Americans. There's a reason in English, exactly. I'm like, you know, there's a reason that they time very like big attacks on moments where Americans and people in the West are like enjoying themselves, like Christmas, you know, the Super Bowl, the Oscars, things like that. And it's like, you know, they're doing that because they expect that we'll be distracted. But there are millions, there's a growing number of people who aren't distracted because, you know, yeah, you could be watching the Super Bowl and also have your phone in your hand checking social media. You could be watching the Oscars and have your phone on you checking social media. You can be sat around the Christmas table having real discussions with your family. And also, like, you don't need to be reliant on the news that you see on a television screen.
Yeah.
Like, you can have, like, that is one of the, like, I don't really necessarily like the, like, second screen content thing, but, you know, this is one of the times where it kind of works. Because it's like, yes, I can have my escapism and my doom scrolling at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sucks. I don't like doom scrolling, but I fear I am addicted to it because I'm like, I have to know what is going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I'm cut off from the internet for more than a couple hours, I'm like, I'm going to miss something and it's going to be incredibly important. And it has nothing to do with, like, you know, my fandoms or whatever, because I'm like, okay, cool, I can catch up on that. But I'm like, something horrible could happen while I do not have access to this information. And how do I, like, work with that? Like, sometimes watching these things happen in real time, yes, it has impacted my sleep, because I'm like, I could go to sleep and then I could wake up and I could be in a completely different world and I don't know how to cope with that. And, you know, I'm like, am I really comfortable laying down and going to sleep while people are suffering? And it's like, I know that there is nothing I could do to help by staying awake, really, but I feel that responsibility to bear witness to what's happening. And is that the most healthy thing? No, but I fear I went to Mon Mothma's school of coping mechanisms, which is not good. Because she also is one of those characters that she sees all of these horrific things and she's like, you know, sometimes all I can do is bear witness to it and make sure that this story doesn't get buried, make sure that people know what happened. And that pains me because I want to be able to help people. I want to just shelter everyone who is hurting, and I can't, you know? And that just
But that also speaks to your humanity, and it also speaks to how they also try to win is by making us feel hopeless and making us feel like there's nothing we can do. There's nothing, you know, I can change. All I'm doing, like, I'm just doom scrolling and seeing all of these like videos and all of this news and all of these images and like horrific things that are happening. And it's not just happening once, it's happening over and over and over and over again. And we even see, like, you know, it went all the way to the International Court of Justice. Like we've tried the ceasefires, like it's gone to all of these like institutions that are supposed to be the ones to stop something like this from happening, and it still hasn't stopped. And so it's easy, and that's what the goal is, to like basically be like, well, we're invincible, there's nothing you can do, there's nothing the world can do to stop this happening. But that's not the reality of it, and that's actually a tactic that the Empire uses as well, right? Like the dehumanization and helplessness that they try to get people at like an individual level, but then also at like a societal level as well. Again, we saw this with Aldani, right? Like they when you see them coming down the mountain for their pilgrimage, essentially, like their religious ritual, they're essentially just like very like, well, yes, they're like singing and everything. There is a little bit of like defeat there, of like they've just accepted how things are at this point. And then when we see Ferrex, same thing, like initially there's like they're hiding, they don't want more trouble. They're just sort of like just trying to like avoid anything happening and staying quiet. And then they remember, well, actually, no, like we're better together. And that's the thing is like we're not in this alone, even though yes, this has been going on for so long. Well, it's been going on for over 75 years.
Yeah.
You know, since October 2023, like that's a small amount of time, and not to say that that's insignificant and what's happened isn't horrific. It absolutely is. It's just unspeakable.
Yeah.
But it's also like not the start of this fight or the struggle, and it's not the end of it. And the more that we stay, like keep up hope, and the more that we hope that it's going to end at some point, and the more we continue to, like you said, bear witness and share this information, and just keep trying and keep going and keep on with the protests, because now they're also trying to like outlaw protests, basically, is what's happening in the US, right? And in Canada as well, like criminalizing certain things that are technically supposed to be protected by the freedoms that we are afforded living in a democracy, living in a free country, trying to like close in on that so that people are deterred from protesting, deterred from speaking out and continuing to speak out, and all of that. But if we keep going and we resist in that way as well, then we will get to the end eventually. We will get to where this ends eventually. And we do see that in Ferrex, where like they try, like in the finale, when they're trying to, the Empire is allowing the funeral procession to happen for Marva, but they're controlling and restricting like every part of it, not realizing that the people of Ferrex are smarter. And that's one of the things to remember is we're always going to find a way. When you're oppressed, when you are on the side of oppressors, you have less to lose. And you will find a way to make things work. And actually, one of the really like brilliant things that I recently watched was a documentary called The Encampments, and it's about the student encampments that were happening on Columbia University, at Columbia University last year. And also then, throughout America, throughout the world, there were so many encampments that got started throughout the world, but it was kind of focused more on Columbia University because of the recognition that they, the attention that the media attention they got worldwide, because the FBI and like the cops, sorry, not the FBI, NYPD were called in really quickly and were arresting students and whatnot. But you see the way that these students adapt and the way that they outsmart like the block essentially that they have to deal with, whether it's the administration or an NYPD or people trying to stop them from doing this thing. And they're so smart, and they're so, and that's the thing, is like, because like we're on the right side of history, we're on the right side of humanity, and we are willing to do what it takes to get to the end of the line. And like there's power in that, and I hope we get to see the ending of it a lot sooner than is expected for everybody's sake, and especially for the Palestinians. But again, this is like a tale as old as time. Like this isn't the first time that we've seen colonization take over a place. This isn't the first time that we've seen an indigenous population be oppressed in this way. This is just the latest iteration of it. And it's also not just happening in Palestine. I wanted to mention this earlier as well. We've got Sudan, we've got Congo, we've got Syria, we've got, oh my God, why am I blanking? Sorry, I blank out on names all the time. It is so bad. But there's so many other countries. We've got the Uyghur population in China. There's so many oppressed peoples. We've got Ukraine still dealing with Russia. Like this isn't the first time, it's not the last time, and it's not the only, form of oppression that we're seeing throughout the world. And we will win in the end. It'll take a while, but we'll win in the end. And that is the message of Star Wars, which I love, is that the the good side will always win in the end. Yes, it takes a lot of work, and yes, it takes a lot of sacrifice, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Like two of I think the most important lines in Star Wars being rebellions are built on hope. Right. And when Leia says to Tarkin, the more you tighten your fist, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. The more they try to crush resistance movements, the stronger those resistance movements are going to get. And, so like, they can start cracking down on protests. We'll just find another way. Right. And, might sound weird. I'm going to bring up a Martin Luther King Jr. quote, but like riots are the language of the unheard, essentially, right? And so, if a protest turns into a riot, oftentimes these days it's because, there's an outside force that's turning it violent, but a riot isn't always a bad thing. Because sometimes you have to be loud and break shit in order to get heard, and we kind of see that on Ferrix. They are like, I think that there's also symbolism in the fact that, they're like the first weapon in that fight that is used by a person on Ferrix is a brick, which as a queer person, I'm like, oh, so we can kind of make something similar to a Stonewall connection, right? Because a lot of rights and freedoms that have been, afforded to queer people in recent history have been about freedom and freedom of expression, freedom of, essentially speech, privacy, all of these things that the empire and empires in general are suppressing and trying to stop people from having, right? And I don't remember who it was, but right after that episode, someone was like, Brasso threw the first brick at Stonewall. And I was like, you're wrong. Like, you are not wrong, my friend. Right. And so, the more resistance groups that you have, and the more you have that melting pot of ideas of this is how we've stood against our oppressors in the past, the better suited we are. Because what are the oppressors going to do? They're going to be like, oh, well, we've done this thing like 10 times and it's kind of worked. That group that we tried to get rid of is still there, but for the most part, it worked. And it's like, okay, but now they're all teaming up against us. What do we do now? And that also kind of goes into the Narkina 5 thing of, we completely outnumber them. They know that. And if we wait for them to figure it out, it's going to be too late.
Yep.
Andor dialogue. I want to hold it delicately in my hand. Because I live by those words.
There's so many great quotes, and obviously the monologues. I need to get on my Andor rewatch immediately after this. But the one thing that I wanted to touch on that you were saying, there's a history there of previous resistance and protests and riots that have happened. And I think that's also one of the important things that happened during Marva's funeral is her speech talking about, Ferrix as a people, and the fact that they had kind of forgotten their roots a little bit, right? And the interesting thing about that is had the Empire just let that entire speech let it all play out to entirety, said nothing, people would have just done the funeral and gone home. Nothing else would have happened. But because they're so afraid of, like you were saying, these group people coming together and knowing that and recognizing, yes, we outnumber them, and we also have home advantage, and we also have we when we come we have this community. The Imperials don't have a community. It's it's all a bunch of employees that are doing this, right?
Yeah.
But with Ferrix, this is their home, right? And so Marva reminding them of that, and then obviously the Empire stepping in, and then Brasso with the brick, and all of that happening in succession, it all just sort of kept igniting, and then we see Willman throw the homemade device, and it just just sparks a fire in the rebellion at that point, which is just so powerful to see.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to relate this back to Palestine, because like when you see like there are so many iconic images that have come out of Palestine over the last, I don't know how many decades, of these resistance fighters using things like stones and whatever rubble they have around them to resist. There's one in particular, and unfortunately the gentleman that's in this photo, they did kill afterwards because of just how popular he was getting. But there's a photo with a young man holding a Palestinian flag in one hand and then holding a homemade slingshot in the other hand, fighting against, I believe it was Israeli tanks. And that image got so popular, and they killed him off because he was becoming an icon. And so much in the same way that Ferrex, and we saw Ferrex like in the past with Cassian's father, also like there being resistance and fights there with, again, just like sticks and stones and, you know, whatever like rubble and material they had. And then we saw it again in the finale of season 1, where again they're fighting with like, other than Wilman's contraption that he made, they're literally just fighting with like whatever things they have, you know, at their disposal, whereas the Empire has like, you know, machines and tanks and guns and all of these things essentially that they're, and they also have like starships and like all of these things. And same thing with Aldani, right? Like these are people who live on a mountain with like just like the clothing on their backs essentially. And then you have the X-Wing, sorry, not the X-Wing, the TIE fighter that's like flying over them just to scare them, right? Like you see like the disparity between the capabilities of the two sides, and the fact that the side with everything is still not winning says a lot.
Yeah. I like Jin says in Rogue One, you know, as Saw would say that one fighter with a sharp stick could take the day, and that is delightful. Rest in peace, Saw Gerrera. You would have loved the Ewoks. Oh man, they are tiny and they have sticks, right? And that is also, you know, everybody loves the Ewoks. Everybody loves Return of the Jedi. And seeing that is so fundamental, because the other battles that we've seen the rebels engage in, they're like, yeah, we've got ships and guns too. They're not as big and grandiose as theirs are, but we still have this technology. And the Ewoks are like, well, we have some trees and we know how to make slingshots and we can sharpen these sticks, and then we're gonna, you know, we're gonna win this battle side by side with you, you know. And they would have lost without those little guys, you know. And to think that they did not get along in the beginning because they just scooped all of our heroes up into a net and we're gonna eat them. But, you know, and it's also very much never underestimate a droid, because 3PO also does save the day there, where he's like, actually, let's not eat my friends. Suddenly I'm flying and I don't know how. You know, but because like, I mean, the Ewoks were also like not super thrilled about the Empire on their world either. And it was like, at the end of the day, let's team up and let's take these guys down. You know, when you have that home field advantage because it is your home planet, you know how to navigate those trees. You know how to build in a way that they can't really take down. You know the weaknesses and the strengths of your home, right? It's also the point of Home Alone, like, which is a weird connection, but you know, the point is like home field advantage. And Ferrex, Andor, and all of these other places, they have that, and the Empire doesn't, because again, they're the invading force. You know.
And they don't even like appreciate, again, like I was mentioning earlier, this is just a resource to them to exploit. They're not recognizing, or they don't even care to like recognize. And we see this so clearly in Aldani, like the head guy that was there up in the tower, forget his name.
The commandant?
Yeah, exactly. Like he like literally could not care less about anything on this planet. He's just here for he's just there for the usefulness of the location of this place, and that's it. And everything else be damned, like literally does not care, and didn't even care enough to like put up proper security measures, like the arrogance of it all too, right? Because it, like, you know, they've got all of like this firepower behind them that they like, you know, don't care enough to really like secure the place that they have now taken over, that's strategically advantageous to them but means nothing to them, whereas it actually means something to other people. But yeah, there's colonization is just like not sustainable in the long run, no matter what they do, because of just the reasoning behind it. It's soulless. There's nothing in it that like, there's no care, there's no love, it's just soulless. And there's only so far that you can go with meeting resistance, and then have it, and like you're not going to have the same like connection and passion and drive, because you just don't have, there's your soul's not in it, like there's no humanity in it, there's nothing, it's just empty, and it always collapses in on itself eventually at one point. And we're seeing just how like Israel's essentially like fumbling and trying to like regain control of like the narratives and everything, and they're losing on so many different fronts now, and like they're scrambling hard, seeing like the world come up against them, and it's not sustainable, and it's not sustainable long term, and there's no way that they can keep doing this without public scrutiny like on them. And so they're just literally now, because they also know that like the world is against them, they're also in this mode of just like, let's try to do as much as possible and just like do whatever we can now, before we're, you know, where like there is actually something there to try and stop us. Like the goal now is literally just destruction of Gaza, to the point where nobody can actually live there. So then later on they can be like, well, nobody's living here, let's just like, you know, build our own things, kind of thing. And it's not sustainable. It's not going to last forever. The unfortunate part is like the destruction that they do manage in the meantime is going to be, well, I mean, we've already seen this pretty brutal, and they're not slowing down.
And it sucks coming from a species that just keeps trying to destroy itself through war. I'm like, what? I look at like animals, and I'll be like, how are you actually more evolved than human beings are? Like I saw a dog this morning, and it was doing dog business. And I was like, you're actually more evolved than humans, because you're not trying to destroy other dogs with weapons of mass destruction that, you know, if you ultimately succeed in killing everybody else, it will also kill you. Like that makes more sense to me.
The interesting thing about that, because I do like think about this as well, like humans without our brains, without technology, without society, we're like middle of the road in terms of the like food chain. And so there's like a lot of insecurity around being in that middle, because you're not at the top, you're not an apex predator, but you're also not like you're not at the bottom where you like have to like there's struggle in there individually, but you also have to like cooperate in order to survive, because individually you can't really survive on your own, whether it is, you know, like preventing or escaping predators or finding food, because like we're in this weird middle spot, and we've evolved so quickly without like getting rid of that insecurity. And so now, instead of it being like apex predator animals that are our like instead of that being what we're afraid of, it is now other human beings that we're afraid of, and we're not able to get to the point where we're like, there's enough on this planet for all of us to have a good life, because a good life is now no longer enough for certain people that hoard most things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
because as like hunter gatherers, there's also part of it is like, yes, there's like the fear of like day to day getting like or like staying alive and finding food, but then there's also like periods of time where we have like you know, animals that hibernate and stuff, we have to like gather, and that is like security and like gathering land and gathering security that way. Like we haven't graduated from those insecurities, and if as humans we could just get past that,
yeah,
we're not like, there's an abundance of resources on this planet that can support all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's supporting us with the top 1%ers holding like 80 to 90% the wealth, you know what I mean? So like there's more than enough, right?
Yeah.
But
Like
there's
it annoys me and makes me so angry. And I'm like, we should be literally in the middle of a full-on revolution against like just all of the downtrodden in the world against the top 1% at this point. Because I'm looking at these people who have like 7 mansions and 12 yachts and are crapping into golden toilets while there are children elsewhere in the world and even in our own communities that not just go to bed hungry, but die of starvation. I cannot fathom that. Like, to me, the epitome of success is having enough to take care of myself and also do everything I can to help take care of my community. And so all of these people, they're like, yeah, I'm just going to hoard all of this for myself and rack up hundreds of billions of dollars and still want more, but I don't care about my community. I'm like, you are not successful to me. Because, you know, I feel successful if I'm like, ooh, you know, I have a bit more disposable income and I can donate to a charity. Or, hey, I outgrew some of my clothes or I just don't wear them anymore. I can donate them to people in need. Or, oh, I have more cans of soup in my cupboard than I thought. I can donate some of these. I feel successful when I'm able to do that. And I'm like, and y'all, like the insecurity of the way that some people handle things. And I'm like, can you use your resources for good? Because even in a hunter-gatherer society, you were sharing that with the community, right? Like you would be taking care of each other. You would take care of the children. You would be taking care of the elders in the community, you know, women who are carrying children or, you know, caring for the children. It wasn't, humans are pack animals. We're meant to look after each other, right? And just seeing people who don't grasp that, but for some reason are still like, oh, I'm an alpha man. I'm like, you do realize that wolves are also pack animals. Right.
There's a really great line in The Good Place, season 3, I believe. And it's shoot, I'm forgetting the name of the character. It's when they're in Sydney, Australia, and they're doing like that whole like psychology experiment thing, and then the researcher that works at the university, oh, I'm forgetting her name. Okay, let me quickly look it up because I do want to actually like
hold, please.
Yes, sorry. I figure you can like edit. What is her name?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I can yap while you Google.
Because it's important. Like she plays a big role.
Yeah. Anyways, we got to meet Manny Jacinto together, and he is a delightful, delightful man.
Yes,
and
Simone.
Very pretty. You good?
Yes, I got the name.
Good Place. Let's go.
Yeah, so there's a quote in The Good Place, I believe season 3, that Simone says when Eleanor does her big like acting out thing when they have when I think it was at the engagement party for Tahani, and then she like, and everybody's like supposed to be going their own way, and she like acts out and whatever, and then Simone tells her, you know, as human beings, like we're supposed to evolve from this idea of like I to we, and I feel like a lot of people, and you're supposed to go through that as a child. Like children are very much like the world revolves around them, which for a good reason is brain is when it first is developed, and it's like that for several years, and then they start graduating into this like concept, this notion of we, and people who don't actually get to that level, and they don't get to it as adults either, and so there's very much this concept of I, and they don't see themselves as part of a community. They see themselves as like the center of the community, and then they get to just like take and do whatever they want with the resources and the people around them, and they just exploit in these like horrific ways. And they also like don't understand the concept of like, if the entire community, if society as an entirety gets elevated, you also move up with the society. But if you're trying to keep moving up while society is staying in the same place, or actually for you to move up, society has to keep going down, like you're never actually going to reach a point of success, because everything around you is not doing well, right? And like it's baffling to me that this isn't like a concept that is like that people just understand, because it's I don't know about you, but it was like something that I just like naturally grew up with. Nobody had to teach it to me. It was just through like what you were taught in school, or even like at home, like sharing, and you know, like all like just these little basic concepts that you learn, and then you see society like. Maybe it's also because like we have like high taxes here in Canada, and we see the benefit of these taxes. Like we get to enjoy our public spaces, our like clean, nice roads for the most part. Right. And so like to me, it's like, yeah, taxes make sense. Like that's like it's a thing that benefits everybody, and I get to enjoy that as well with everybody else. Right. I don't like I don't know, like it's just like you're saying, like I don't understand people who don't understand these things, right? And I understand obviously like some people are, I mean, there are societies around the world that just don't have enough for, you know, resources, and they get exploited, and you know, so like that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about like people in these like quote unquote developed societies, first world societies, whatever you want to call them, like Western societies that are supposed to be doing well financially in terms of like freedom and rights and human rights and all of that. And then it's like you are a product of these societies, and you don't see how public good benefits everybody, including yourself. Like that does not, how are you so selfish? But it's also like we do live in societies where individualism unfortunately is like very like is also very big, and community is not as big, and I think part of like, you know, not having community like that does have like an effect on a person's like psychology, which is unfortunate. I know we're going on like
oh, it's no, this is delightful. And there is also something to be said about, you know, the connection between, this is always interesting, pandemics, fascism, and individualism. Because, you know, if you're like, when I go to the polls to vote, which is not fun, but I do it. I used to think it was fun. I used to be like, ooh, I get to have a say in the future of what's going on. And now I'm like,
you're making me choose between these people.
I'm like, how is this the best case scenario? As I'm putting I'm letting strategically vote, right? Because, but like when I go to the polls, I am not only thinking about myself, right? Because I'm like, I do okay. I, you know, I'm generally able to feed myself. I have a community of, if I can't feed myself for whatever reason, I will still be fed. You know, I have a stable job. I have a roof over my head. I'm not necessarily just thinking about myself. There is an element where I'm like, oh, you know, yes, of course, like I matter as a member of society. But I also think about, you know, the families that have less than me, the people that have less than me, and all of that. I'm like, okay, you know, there are other people who are suffering. There are other people, there are communities that are more visibly, like visible minorities that are marginalized. I'm also making sure that I'm doing my best for them as well. Right. But so many people are like, oh, well, I want this, so I'm voting for this god awful choice because he said he's going to lower gas prices, or make groceries cheaper. And I'm like, first off, they don't have a plan for this. So, you don't just be like, this is what I'm going to do. You need to have a plan, right? And I want to have faith in that plan before I vote for a person, right? Or be like, okay, maybe the plan needs a little bit of tweaking, but I can understand how it's somewhat feasible. But I'm like, I don't have that. It's very rare that I have that streak of individualism where I'm like, I have to just care about myself in this moment. And I don't like it when that happens, because I'm very much a community-minded person, where I'm like, oh, sharing is good. Taking turns at things is good. Taking care of each other is a net good. And so many people, I think, lost that during the pandemic, and it also does cause that rise of fascism, because during a pandemic there's so much uncertainty. During a war there's so much uncertainty, and you want something that's certain, so you're more likely to fall back on something like a traditionalist idea, right? That also relates to Lita as well, because she's like, I don't know what's going on. She is so uncertain in her little teenage life that she's like, I need something that's certain. This has worked for my people in my culture. I will have stability, security, and be able to, survive all of this uncertainty if I do this. And of course, she's probably going to go ahead with it based off of all the promotional material we've seen.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, her safety and security matters. Because I'm like, I don't think Davos Skulden is a guy that's going to be like, yeah, sure, Mr. Empire Man, you can take my daughter-in-law. He's going to be like, no, I hold a crap ton of power and wealth. You're not going to come into my house and try to take my family away, right? Which is an insane level of privilege that might end up saving her life. But so that also opens up the idea, the whole concept that so many people don't have that privilege. If the Empire goes knocking on Bix's door, she does not have that to back her up. And so it becomes the job of the people who are in that privileged position to stand up. So that's why we should just keep protesting.
Yeah. And that's also why it's been so amazing and so important to have people protesting that are not just Palestinians, Muslims, Arabs, like the people who have a connection to this fight, and having and seeing so many people who are not from those communities, those backgrounds, be part of it. And I think that's also part of what scares those in power, those who are benefiting from what is happening in Palestine, whether it's financially, whether it's societally, whatever have you. It's mostly financial.
Yeah.
Or at least there is a financial component. That I think that's what scares them, because it's not just Arabs and Muslims have enough of a bad rap that they can just keep blaming us for everything, right? But it's but we're not actually the majority of the people who are doing these protests and engaging in them, and sometimes not even the ones leading it. So it's okay, so then who are you going to demonize here?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to something that you were saying previously, and it's this concept of us versus them, right? They the pandemic, and the one thing that those in power who want to stay in power do successfully is create this divide of us versus them, Democrats versus Republicans, conservatives versus liberals. You know what I mean, right? It's always if you can divide people in different ways, then they will never, we as the people with the numbers, with the actual power, are never going to get together enough to actually make a change. And that's what we actually do see in Andor a little bit, with all the different factions of resistance. We see Saw, we see Luthen, we see Mon Mothma, and they each have their own ideas and strategies, and they're still sort of going at it between each other. Meanwhile, the Empire is all together, basically, right?
Yeah.
They're on board, and even if it's not technically super on board with everything that everybody's doing. There's still like enough of like, you know, they're not fighting that much, right?
Yeah, as much, yeah.
As much. And when you have that, like, you know, pitting people against each other, and the one I'm gonna bring up Tim, the one like storyline where this is so prevalent that we see in Andor towards the beginning of the season is Tim, when he gets manipulated into giving up Cassian, because he's like, he gets manipulated into it because he's like fearful for Bix, but there's also like selfishness there, right? Like, he is insecure about his position with Bix as her boyfriend or significant other or whatever it is, and is jealous of her relationship with Cassian. And so he gives them up, like he basically uses the excuse of like, oh, saving Bix, you know, to then get rid of Cassian, right?
Yeah.
But it's because he was able to, because he thought of it as like us versus them. Like, to him, Cassian was them, instead of being like, no, people of Ferrix and then the Empire is who we're fighting. Like, he fell into the infighting that, you know, the Empire is successfully able to like use him as the divide, and then he brings in, like, he's the reason that all of this crap gets brought into Ferrix. All like the Empire and like the arrests and Bix getting captured and tortured, and all, like, you know, the Empire running after Cassian and all of that. And he doesn't even know whether Cassian is guilty or not properly. Like, he doesn't know what happened with Cassian. And if he had known like what that situation entailed, the fact that like he was literally just walking and then cops decided to like, you know, exercise their power over him because, you know, just abuse of power because they're, you know, small egos. And
Tim is the McDonald's worker that ratted out Luigi Mangione. Again,
no, you're right.
The us versus them, right? Because it was like, oh, I'm pretty. Because wasn't there a reward for Cassian that the Corpos were offering that Tim never got because he died?
I mean, they killed him in the end. Like, but that's also like, that was also brilliant, because it's not just like, oh, he did this thing and he brought in all of like the chaos, brought the Empire down onto Ferrix, but it ended up causing his death at the end. Like, he got, like, because he ratted them out, or he ratted Cassian out, it came back, and I like that. I'm glad that happened, but I also feel like, had he lived and had to deal with the consequences and see the consequences of his actions and all of the things that happened afterwards, I think that also would have been really brilliant. And then, you know, kill him off in the finale. Just But that's also like another lesson of like, you know, you never trust the Empire. Like, no matter what it is that they're promising, no matter what, like, because they don't care about you. They've never cared about you. They just care about order and control.
They'll find a technicality to not give you your reward for whatever it is. Either it's you didn't call the tip line, or they're going to kill you. Or they're going to turn it around and be like, oh, actually, you were part of this. Like, you were involved with this. Right. Turn it around on you.
Or you will get the reward, but then society as a whole is going to shift, and it's going to be detrimental to you in the end, right? Like, had Tim lived, had he not been killed right then and there, and he lived through all the changes and all of the crackdowns that happened in Ferrix after that, he still would have been affected by, like, maybe he did get the reward, but it's like, okay, cool, you got the reward, now what? You ruined Ferrix as a society by that selfish thing that you did. Yeah. There's like, there's
poor layers.
Bix, honestly. And
poor Bix.
And that's the other thing too, is like, by like his intention to save Bix or whatever, as, you know, well-intentioned perhaps, but just not thought out well, she ended up being the one to suffer the most in Ferrix, actually, with her getting captured and tortured and experimented on with the torture as well. Again, another parallel to Palestine. Oh man, that was so hard to watch. Like, just brilliantly acted, just so difficult to watch.
And also, like, you know, speaking as like women, knowing what happens to female prisoners of war at the hands of colonizers and imperialists, I was terrified. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, I live in fear that happened to Bix. Because like in their minds, why wouldn't they? They would get away with it.
Oh yeah.
Right? It is another form of that power and control that lingers.
It's a way to break. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a way to break the prisoners.
And the thing is, like, there's that part of me that's just like, I need confirmation that it didn't happen in season 2. But I'm like, if anybody mentions it on screen, even if it didn't happen, I will not be okay. Right? Because the amount of times that we have seen specifically female prisoners of war in the Empire, I don't like thinking that happened to any of them, but it's that thought sticks with me. Right. And yes, it is a crime against humanity, especially in wartime because of those reasons. Right. And, you know, it's another layer of the reality that, you know, I don't think Tim thought it through. Right. And I think if he had lived, he would have regretted it, especially after what happened to Bix. And, you know, it's one of the reasons why I love Brasso so much, is because he was like, his priorities for getting people off Ferrix were B2, Bix, and Wilmon. And I'm like, those are 3 individuals. I'm counting B2 as a person here.
Yes.
Yes. Hashtag droids rights. There are 3 individuals who definitely would have been treated even more brutally. Yes. Right? And I don't even think Wilmon was wrong for what he did at the end of the day. There is a lot to be said about when colonialism and imperialism and the people that work for those systems do horrible things to a community. A lot of times it hits the men very hard because, you know, we do live in a society where men are seen as the protectors. If you take out the protectors, it's easier to bring the protected under your thumb, right? And so, you know, they'll take out fathers, they'll take out male community leaders. And Thelman Pack was one of those people. And when you do that and you cause that trauma, you also cause radicalization, which is why at the end of the day, I'm like, I do not, Mr. IOF person, I do not care if that child threw a rock at your head, because the amount of trauma, it makes sense that this child has been radicalized. I do not like that child has been radicalized, but I understand the psychology behind it. Yeah. Because, you know, especially for young men, because now you have 12, 13, 14-year-old boys who are like, well, now I'm the man of my family. It's my job to protect them, right? Which I also don't like that being put on the shoulders of young boys as well. But it's similar to the ways that, like, it goes back to the very beginnings of humanity, right? Where families were having like a lot of children, and you would need to have, like, you're not going to expect a pregnant woman to fight off a bear with a spear, right? You would need to protect them if you were a man and not in that position, right? And so, yeah, Wilmon Pack, I love you, actually. Yes.
Oh,
and I want to wrap him in bubble wrap and hold him.
Yeah.
And I know you feel the same way.
Oh, I do. And the thing is too, like Wilman's father goes through the same thing that Bix did, right? He just didn't make it out alive.
Yeah.
Right. And Bix wouldn't have made it out alive had they not gone in and brought her out at that point. And we see Wilman, after he does what he does, about to be taken by stormtroopers, and Brasso, again, love him, he recognizes that immediately, and like you said, immediately grabs him, and it's like, we're leaving, because he knows they're not going to leave him alive. And we know that because, we know that because it's the Empire, but we've also seen in Cassian's past, when his father just happened to be near a protest happening, and he was actually trying to calm them down, but because he was in the vicinity of it, they killed him. And not just him, a bunch of other people too. And nothing actually happened at that point. And you're right, like when you see, like, as a child, your parent go through something like that and get killed, or like any family member, and especially when you get orphaned, you do get radicalized. And Wilman, I believe he's around 16 in season 1. So we're going to see him grow up throughout season 2. It's so, like, we also don't see him with any other family. So, like, it's not unreasonable to think this is all the family he had. And there's, like we've said before, like, you don't have as much to lose. To, like, in a fight like this when you're being oppressed. And so he's doing whatever he can in order to get back at the people who did this thing to his father and him. And he literally, and like, you even see it when the stormtroopers come up to him. He's just like, he's not running away. He knows it's not a good situation. He does sort of try to, like, fight back a little bit when they grab him, but he's not running. Like, he's almost like, this is it. Like, there's nothing else for me. And I'm so glad, because, like, the expectation would be for him to, be captured and killed, and, that's the end of his story. But I'm so glad that that's not what they did with his storyline, and we get to see him in season 2, and I'm hoping we get to see more of him in season 2. I don't know if you remember at Star Wars Celebration, the preview that we saw, like, because I was looking for him in the preview, there was quite a few, like, he showed up quite a bit in that. And I haven't seen him as much in some of, like, well, actually, some of the more recent, like, promos, we're seeing more of him. There's actually one I think that they posted this morning, Star Wars posted this morning, and he gets, like, a line of dialogue in there. And so I'm hoping that, and I'm pretty confident that he's going to get a bigger role and a pretty amazing arc throughout season 2. And I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see all of them back and all of the different things that they're all going to be able to do, both individually and with Cassian, and, like, bring all of these different factions of the rebels, the rebellion together. Man, I just really wish this season, if they had, like, shot it all and then split it up into 2 seasons, like, shoot 2 seasons worth of material, and we would have gotten 3 seasons. Or if
Tony Gilroy just releases,
like the 3 episodes.
It's going to be a gut punch week after week after week. I'm like,
I don't even know how I'm going to process it all. We can barely process season 1 as it was happening.
It's 2.5 years and I still haven't fully processed it.
Those 4 weeks.
It's
just going to be my life.
Lot. And, like, knowing that the Gorman massacre, which is a massive event, just against a population, it's against a population that is trying to just ask for basic rights and to not have their shipping lanes cut off so that they don't starve. Knowing that that's 5 episodes, I'm like, okay, I know Tony, I know the way Tony's brain works sometimes. It's either gonna, my big theory is that it's going to be the last episode of one of the arcs, the entirety of the next arc, and the first episode of the next arc. I'm like, he is going to draw this out for maximum impact, I think. And I don't like that that's where my mind goes, but I'm like, I fear that that is likely. I fear like that is the pain I will feel.
Yeah, and you know what? We need weeks to process these things, and they're not giving it to.
Nope. I'm like, I could take 5. I was like, I could take 5 weeks of this, and I wouldn't be processed. I will not have this processed by the next Star Wars celebration, not the one next weekend. The next one after that. Yeah. Like, I will still be processing Andor. I mean,
we're still talking about
season 1.
Yeah, and we're still talking about Andor season 1 2 years later, or more than 2 years, like 2.5 years later.
Yeah.
Like, and I wish that they had
impactful.
Yeah, I wish that they had scheduled, because I think the reason that they're releasing it this quickly is for Emmy nominations.
Yeah.
Is my understanding. And I wish they had released it earlier. Like, just start releasing it earlier. Like, Skeleton Crew should have been earlier. You know, give a little bit of time than this. And I know that there's like Daredevil Born Again, but that didn't stop them from dropping a Star Wars show and a Marvel show at the same time before.
Yeah. And
right?
both
like,
of them kind of did pretty well, if I remember correctly. I don't remember when the last time it happened, but
I believe it was Miss Marvel and what was it was either Miss Marvel or She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I forget. But anyways, I don't know.
I think it was around the time of a Mandalorian season. Like,
no.
if not, no.
Maybe? Oh, maybe.
I don't remember.
I thought Miss Marvel had a Star Wars show dropping at the same time. Or it was like overlapping a little bit. Anyways.
I don't remember.
Anyways.
Wait, was Miss Marvel summer of 2023?
Okay, let's look this up.
Yeah. Because if it was the summer of 2023, there might have been
some June 8th, 2022.
2022 was right before Andor. Because Andor was the end of September 2022.
Okay, so maybe that was the one. But anyways, I just wish we got more time with this season. Like, I really enjoyed the last, like, especially since it's such a condensed timeline, and this is like the last time that we're gonna get to like be with these characters. Like, it just unfair.
I'm not okay.
I'm not okay.
I need to wrap so many of these characters in bubble wrap and just hold them and be like, it's okay. It's okay. You're gonna be okay. And part
of me is like, none of them are gonna make it out alive. Because we already know the fate of some of them. Well, other than Mon Mothma. She makes it out alive.
She doesn't have a canonical death.
No.
Cassian, Krennic, and Saw, by the end of this season, clock is ticking on you guys. Also K2.
And K2.
Draven, we know when Draven dies. Because Vader choked him to death in the comics.
And now we've got like Bix and Woman and
Luthen and Vel and Cinta.
And Vel and Cinta. And Clea.
Yeah, I'm like,
just too. And Dedra and Cyril.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Cyril's defection.
I'm gonna so real. Emily and I talked at length about that.
Yeah. Oh man, I love Em so much. And I love how much she loves Cyril. Yeah. Every time she like talks about it, I'm like, yes. Tell me more.
I'm like, yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, I was so lucky. I was like, hey, do you want to come on the countdown? I was like, you're gonna pick Cyril. You're gonna pick Cyril. And she was like, can I talk about Cyril? I'm like, yeah, I was right.
Of course.
It's like a Beth with Dedra, which was
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Did you have Danielle come on?
I did. Danielle and I talked about Cassian.
Yes, I knew it.
It was very emotional. Yeah. Some of them are just very, very obvious. And it's like, oh yeah, fork fountain kitchen. Let's go.
Yep.
And I love to see it because I'm like, it's like, yeah, we really do know each other pretty well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think at its core, Star Wars is a story about rebellion, resistance, all of those things.
Yeah. And the cost and price of those sometimes, but then also the payoff of it.
And finding those moments of joy as well.
Yes.
Right? Like, you know, at the end of Return of the Jedi, the war against the Empire isn't over. But we still have time to take a moment and celebrate that pretty tremendous victory. Right? End of Phantom Menace, you know, there was still going to be a lot of crap going on with the Trade Federation and everything else to do with it, but they still took the time to celebrate their liberation from what they went through, and that is cool. End of Revenge of the Sith. Do not talk to me. That is, you know, it's coming because it's like Greek tragedy, but it doesn't make it easier.
Yeah, and that's the thing too with this show as well. Like, we know what's coming down the line, which makes it both better and worse. I can't remember if I can't remember if I did this or somebody else did this. Rewatching Andor it's like the finale and then jumping into Rogue One.
The way
where like
once season 2 ends, I'm gonna do season 1, season 2, Rogue One. I'm gonna book like 2 days off work, hole up in my bedroom with a handful of boxes of tissues, some snacks, and just go right through.
Dude, I can't wait for them, because I'm pretty sure this is going to happen, to bring in Jin, and I can't wait for M to lose her damn mind.
It's going to be a fantastic.
we all will.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, because we're getting K2, and if like we know Saw ends up on Jeddah, because Saw has to get to Jeddah within the confines of the season. Phase and Chirrut
might be with him.
Phase and Chirrut and Wilmot. Oh my gosh.
I really, oh man, I'm so glad that like Wilman, like, yeah, I'm really glad like he is where he is right now, and I'm really hoping we get to see all of that in Brasso. Yeah, I see. Like, here's the thing: it's like, who knows if anyone is going to survive?
Yeah,
because like these are all original characters, and I would love to like imagine them surviving and living elsewhere.
Every
but
time
it's also kind of
gonna die, I'm like, no.
But it's also kind of
sipping martinis.
Yeah. But it's also kind of like, the thing that makes me hesitant is because we don't see any of them in Rogue One with Cassian, and they're all really like important to him throughout the story. And so it's like, unless they're off doing their own thing, one can hope, one can dream.
Yeah.
It's not looking too good.
Yeah.
I don't like to think about it though.
Yeah, the only one that we see him like have in Andor that's still by his side in Rogue One is Melshi, and then K2, of course. We're gonna get K2. Yeah. I want to see Bodhi. I want to see Bodhi in season 2.
Yes.
I love that I love my little Imperial Defector squad.
Yes.
Because they are so
also
important.
Riz Ahmed.
Yeah. Oh. A green boat. Oh. But like, yeah. It's gonna be painful.
It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be and the thing is, it's gonna like happen so quickly.
Yeah.
With characters that we're so like attached to.
Yeah.
And I can't wait, but I'm also like dreading it.
Yeah. We'll have seen half of the season by the time May the 4th rolls around. And it's gonna be like mid-season party. Woo! 2 days we're gonna be going through 2 days, we're gonna be traumatized again. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if season 1 is any indication, like by the halfway point, we'll have lost maybe some people.
Yeah, I don't want to lose Leia. I don't want to lose any of them.
Yeah, there's also some like arcs from season 1. Yeah. There's also like the whole sister arc that they never really like did anything with in season 1 that I'm wondering if it will ever come back in season 2, or whether, because that's the other thing, season 2, because it is such a condensed timeline and there's so much that they need to cover, we don't get as much time to explore things like we did with season 1, which is like, I mean, we already know the characters, or most of the main characters. We don't necessarily need that time, but at the same time, it's like, years worth of things happening. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. That. I feel like a lot of the characters that we're getting in season 2 that we didn't have in season 1, we're already familiar with.
Yes.
K2, Krennic, Draven. So it's like, I'm looking forward to seeing Krennic again. I just like Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
Never forget when, was it 2016 Celebration where he came out dressed as Krennic on the stage? There's like video clips on YouTube. It's hilarious. I'm fully expecting him to just show up in Japan like that.
Damn.
And if it happens, I will be unwell because I'll be like, you're kidding me.
I actually haven't looked at, because like Celebration FOMO, I haven't looked at like all the people who are set to be at Celebration, and I wonder how much of the Andor cast is going to be there. I hope they like show at least like the first episode to everybody who's there for you guys, like, because it's like a few days ahead of like
truly,
and
it shouldn't be exclusive to people who are on the celebration who got the celebration stage, because I should be able to see.
Yeah.
I did not get celebration stage, and I'm still mad about it.
And they like, okay, honestly, they should, whenever there's like these big panels, they should have like a secondary room or just have like all of the big stages just like show that one. So it's
they are streaming it to Twin Suns and Galaxy stage, but I'm like, it's not going to feel the same.
But it's still not the same.
Until I am forced to sit down on, I think it's the Galaxy stage. I will still be living in delusion that I'm going to be at the celebration stage.
I hope you get it. I really do. It is a whole other experience.
Mon Mothma, just dressed as Mon Mothma. I'm like, you have to let me in.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be. Well, I think.
Just be like, yeah, I am Mon Mothma. Like, how dare you?
Literally Mon Mothma. Me and any other Andor cosplayer, if you did not get celebration stage, hit me up. We're gonna go bully everyone into letting us in.
I hope you get it.
Yeah. I feel like Savi will defend me, even though I think she got celebration stage. I'm gonna be like, this is Bix Colleen. Do you know what she's been through? She's telling you to let Mon Mothma in.
Seriously.
I was like, I've never been turned away from a party in my life.
Yeah.
Do you know who I am? And if Beth didn't get celebration stage, Beth can come with me. Who's gonna say no to not only Mon Mothma, but Mon Mothma and Dedra Miro?
And Dedra together. I wonder if those two will ever actually like meet face to face.
It's my dream. It's my dream.
Right?
I need it. Mom's like, I don't like you, but it's like, but we both love our little bonsai trees, so we can bond over that.
Yeah.
Dedra's like, are you doing any rebellious activity? She's like, just look at my bonsai tree.
Does seriously,
does this tree make me
I'm planning my daughter's wedding. Do I have time for rebellious activity?
Yeah.
Please.
I'm having multiple affairs and planning my daughter's wedding. Does it look like I have time for rebellion? You haven't slept in 3 weeks, Mom. Go to bed.
Oh boy. Beth is also like another person that I just absolutely love seeing. Every time she like speaks about Dedra, I'm just like, tell me more. Tell me everything.
Like, I'll have seen a video of hers like several times, and every time it will come up randomly because it's like, we're going to show you videos that you've already liked and commented on. And
have been doing
I'm like, okay, I'll still rewatch it. And she'll be like, I've been talking for like 10, 15 minutes now. And I'm like, oh, you have? Okay.
Really?
I'm like, that's fine. I'm listening to you and folding my laundry. So if anything, you're helping me because I wasn't going to fold this laundry.
No, that's so true. It's
yeah.
It's like whenever I take a break from work and I start scrolling through like TikTok, I hope, because I try not to go like straight into like someone's profile, because I know especially like with creators in the US who are part of the creator program, if they come across your feed on the main feed and you watch it, then they will get paid. But if you do it through like friends or whatever, then they won't get paid for it. So like I'll just like keep scrolling until I get to like one of my friends. And I'm like, hello. Then I just watch it.
I'm like, stop for a little bit of news, rant in the comments, move on.
Yeah.
Ooh, look, a friend.
Yeah.
Is there any other things we wanted to touch on from your thread before we fully, because I feel like we did jump into what are we most looking forward to in Andor season 2 already.
We did. I think I covered all of the points that I had like put in that list, and I'm gonna like, as I'm doing the rewatch, I'm gonna like keep making like notes and see if there's anything new that I can think of at that point. But yeah,
for season 2, keep it going.
Oh yeah, I will try. I will try to just start up like
season 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
Just shout out to Tony Gilroy for being like, I'm gonna put not just like Star Wars political commentary, but I'm gonna hammer home how it's all connected.
Yeah,
this show. And the smart people, the people that Andor is meant for, the hot and smart people, they'll get it. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, we've been getting it.
Yeah. Like the High Republic, Andor is by and for hot people and also super smart people. Because I'll be like, my brain only has room for Star Wars in here, right? But then I can have like a deep intellectual conversation about real world politics in the car with my partner. And I'm like, yeah.
But that's the thing. It's not
because
like this war. Exactly. And that's the thing that and it's the thing that I think is a lot, like, also really brilliant is, like, sometimes when people, because Palestine, I know I keep going back to it, but that was the point of this podcast. But with Palestine, because so many people first started learning about what was going on there after the events of October 7th and everything that was happening in social media, essentially, like, catching on fire with everything that's been, like, just constantly being shown and rolling out. Media allows us to contextualize some of these things. Like, when you understand a dynamic in media, and then somebody can be like, oh yeah, this is what's happening in real life, is kind of like this thing that happened in this show or movie or whatever, that you understand. Just like with, like, the Hunger Games, which I know some people still misunderstand, but that sort of thing, like, it does help people understand and contextualize. And so I know sometimes people will be like, oh, like, not everything is, not everything needs to be, like, intellectualized in terms of media, and not everything is, like, parallel, and, like, we shouldn't be, like, you know what I mean, like, making parallels. It was like, well, no, that's how people learn sometimes. And especially when it's, like, somebody who's new to something that has been, like, ongoing for so many decades and is so complex. And I appreciate shows like Star Wars that still have, like, the magic of Star Wars, and some of, like, the campiness, and some of the like the Eye and Aldani, like some of, like, the beautiful visuals, and getting to see these new worlds, and getting to see these new cultures, and, like, Ferrix, and all these really great new characters, and getting to see space and all of that. But you still be, really grounded in reality as well, and have a grounded, more realistic take of what is happening within the world of Star Wars that we've already seen elsewhere, right? Because, like, we get to see the rebels, and we get to see the struggle in, from different sides, from different perspectives, and in different ways. But Andor is giving us a very grounded, very, like, in not just individual, like, very, like, localized take for that, like we're seeing it through the eyes of, like, a small number of people who are part of, like, all of these different groups and organizations, and have been part of the struggle for a while, or are joining it, or have been, thrust into it. Oh, one other thing I did want to say, that was really, that I kind of thought of as we were speaking, with Wilman and with Cassian, both of them going through very similar traumatic experience, and how their lives, like, went on the same trajectory but in different ways, right? Like, after losing his dad, Cassian essentially, like, laid low. I mean, he was still doing kind of some stuff, like, he didn't go into the rebel route, but because, the situation around him didn't allow for that. Whereas with Wilman, because the situation around him has already, in a state that is, like, ripe for rebellion, he, like, went straight into that, right? And they both end up in the same, and not end place, but they both, like, end up on the same journey, just in different parts of their life, which I think is really cool. Use a character that has a similar sort of, like, spark or ignition, to where they're at, which is really cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love when Star Wars is like, here is little guy that is very similar to this other guy that you love, and I'm like, cool, now both of them are wrapped in bubble wrap and being held. It's Will Pack can do no wrong in my eyes, actually.
Nope.
He can fist fight Palpatine, and I'd be like,
obviously.
No one else is fist fighting Palpatine. You go, sweetheart. Just because I feel like, first time I was watching Andor, because again, all of my first watches for Andor were like 3:00 in the morning. So I'm slightly grateful that I mean, rip to my besties in the UK and Europe, but it's going to be like 9 p.m. for me, and I'm going to be like, ah, yes, a nice evening movie before bed, and I'm traumatized.
They should do the weekend releases on like a 5 p.m. And so like everybody gets like a reasonable-ish time. So you're not waking up in the middle of the night to watch this damn thing or having to like wake up super early in the morning. Avoid your computer, your phone, your life.
Yeah. Watch it with dinner, with family. And I feel like the first time I was watching it, Willimon didn't really stand out for me until I was rewatching it. Right? Because I was like, oh, like I saw what he was doing with making the device. I saw him use it at the funeral, but I don't think I fully pieced together. And then the time I watched it after that, like my full first rewatch, I was like, oh, this has been brewing this whole time. This little boy had Rebel, this sweet little boy had Rebel written all over him from the beginning.
Yeah, from his father.
Yeah, he just kind of had a little bit of that like air of defiance. And I was like, I like it.
And also because his father was isn't he, if I remember correctly, that's where like that's who Bix was going to in order to like send the like illegal messages, right? Like to get so like it's like he's already seen exactly. So he's already seen his dad, and he's like not just seen his dad, he like helps his dad with this. He understand like there's no way his dad hasn't like told him what is happening. He's old enough to know and understand what is going on. So he's already like in this sort of like he's already engaging in some rebellious activity. And like his performance in the finale, I literally just rewatched it this morning because I wanted to like make sure that I like remembered all the things that happened. Like I just watched like his scenes, the like rage, grief, sadness, like just the amount of emotion that the actor Muhammad was able to portray with his face, no dialogue, as they were like listening to Marva's speech. And Brasso looks at him at one point as well, like they exchange looks. And I feel like Brasso either knew what his plan was or knew something was going to happen, which is why he was looking out for him and caught him real quick after the stormtroopers were trying to get him. But just like that was just so brilliant. And I was paying attention because like again, when you see stories like this in real life, you know what the outcome is. And so I was like, my eyes were on him in the finale, being like, what's going to happen to him? This is like, it's going to take like, what's going on? I can't remember if I had known, if I had looked up the actor previously and known that he was Tunisian. A first Tunisian actor, by the way, in Star Wars ever, 48 years later. And so I don't know if I had known that prior to the finale. I think I did because the name Salman Pak sounds Arab to me. And so I was like looking him up and then I looked up Willman and I was like, oh, one of them is. But like is actually like ethnically from North Africa. But I think that's part of also the reason why I was like looking at him or like paying attention to him in the finale, because it's like that is again a thing that like would get you caught and killed immediately. Like what he does in that finale. And so I was like dreading that. And when I saw what he did, like part of me was like, oh my God, he's not gonna make it. But the fact that he not only makes it out, but he's with Brasso and Bix and B2 is
the way that I was holding my breath, because I was like I saw him making the device and I was like, that's going to come up later. And it's going to be big, right? And you know, I think part of it is also like, because you know, they had this funeral for Marva, they were able to do that. There was no way in hell the Empire would have let them have a funeral for his father.
Oh no.
And that also speaks to, because there's, oh my God, is it Captain Tigo? Like when they're dragging him out and he's like, oh, like I want to hang like what's left of him. I'm like, that is revolting. But
I forgot about that.
The way that it speaks to the experiences, I think, of so many people who die in these struggles as well. That like the few funerals you have to speak for everyone that you have lost, right? And Salman died before Marva, so she would have known about his death. And knowing that her own death is coming, because she was kind of at the point where she was like, you know, I'm old, I'm just gonna go, right? And the fact that she was like, oh yeah, like I want to do something for the rebellion now because I was inspired by what those folks did on Aldhani. And I love that she was inspired by Cassian, right? Even though she never knew it. That the boy that she raised is her inspiration for fighting back. But I think that part of it was that she was like, I have to speak for everyone that has suffered on Ferrix at the hands of these people, right? Because I also don't think they would have let them have a real funeral for Clem. So you have
no, they didn't.
You have specifically like these men who are community leaders and pillars of the community because everyone knew Clem, everyone knew Salman, and so she's like, now it is my job to bring not only peace to my soul and speaking my truth and my thoughts, I have to do it for these two men at least as well, right? And if they died because of their rebellion, they would not want that flame to die, right? And that is one of the ways that I'm going to kind of cope with the death toll in season 2 is that, you know, they can keep taking these rebel fighters down, but the flame will grow ever brighter. And if you could take down one of them, several more will come and take their place, right? On the beaches of Scarif, you had fighters screaming for Jeddah, right? After Alderaan, you had people who are joining because of what happened to Alderaan.
Yeah.
So, you know, the deaths of the people that died are not in vain.
Yes.
Even if they were never given that proper burial and those funeral rites and everything that goes with it. And that's part of the reason why they keep fighting is so that those deaths are not in vain.
Yeah. And that goes back to what you had said earlier about also bearing witness and like engaging with the content, like what we're still seeing and remembering the people. Because even if we can't actively stop what is happening, we won't forget the people who died while it was happening.
Yeah.
And that is still powerful in its own way, because that like the bearing witness and remembering in having like having connection to the people who are in the fight and are not making it out alive is a reason to keep going, to make it worth what was sacrificed. And I think that's probably going to be like a theme that we're going to see in season 2 for sure. All of the people that they've lost, all of this, and not even just the people, but like the loss of now their home, the loss of their autonomy, the loss of innocence, so many losses happening. It's just like, well, keep going to make that worth it, to get out the other end, or so somebody gets out the other end. Again, back to Luthen's like monologue where he says, "I fight for a sunrise I'll never see."
Yeah.
Right? Am I misquoting? I don't know if that was the right quote, but
I burn my future for a sunrise I'll never see. I like, you know, all of that.
Exactly.
The same gist, right? And I think there's also something to be said about the way that they try to kind of hide the stories of these people, right? And we're seeing it a little bit more in our real world with like book bans and censorship and things like that. And the way that, you know, stories like Why the Caged Bird Sings, Art Spiegelman's Mouse, The Diary of Anne Frank, they're trying to keep these stories away from us. They're also trying to keep stories like No Other Land, the beautiful documentary.
That was my point.
That it's just like, it's like, no, because people, the more that you try to hide these stories from us, the more people are going to want to know them, right? Like, and that is super duper important. Because it speaks to us being like, no, we want to make sure that these people are honored, right? And we're going to see it probably more in the coming months and coming years, especially out of America, and I hope not out of Canada as much. But those book bans that specifically target the stories of minorities, you know, Indigenous voices, Arab voices, queer voices, women's voices, like these stories are super important, and we have to look at why they want these things banned. Because they're admitting their fear. Because again, like Star Wars, the act of reading is political, right? You know, it literally goes back to the printing press and the evolution of everything that came along with it. It goes back to the Enlightenment. And now it's in the information age. So read books, consume, I don't even like saying consume media, but like engage with media and make an effort to understand why there are stories that they don't want us to hear. What does that tell us about what they don't want us doing? And let's go out and frickin' do it. Keep resisting.
Yes. All right. Should we get through like the last couple of questions the last couple of topics? Because I think we're like at 2 hours. I don't know how much editing you do, but like feel free to like edit out like tangents and stuff that I go on that is either repeating or
the thing with this one is because like I think probably when I do the next series after like Andor season 2, there's going to be editing, but I wanted this one to be really organic.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, it's
sorry
just
for like doing like the
YouTube is just gonna be like this is great. No, it's
at least like edit out like the me going to like Google to
No, because I think I brought up a really good point there as well. I was bragging about us meeting Manny. Who's your favorite original Andor character that we meet in the show? I feel like I know who you're gonna say, but could be wrong.
I talked about Owen Pack like a lot in terms of like what I'm looking forward to in season 2, and he is one of my favorites. I do always gravitate to like the silly little dudes though, so like B2 like captured my heart like immediately. I'm not ready for where we're gonna end with him in season 2. I don't know like what's happening with him. I know that we're gonna see more of him. That's all I want to think about. But
he
B2 has like a special place.
He is living happily in his little charger/puppy bed thing because his baby. Your least favorite original Andor character. I know who you're gonna shit talk. It's fine.
We already talked about Tim.
Yeah, it's Tim.
Listen, it was his fault. Dude was insecure about his relationship, and instead of talking about it like a normal human being, he made it everybody's problem and brought the Empire crashing down on the Ferrix. Listen, brilliantly like played by the actor.
Oh yeah.
But just as like a character.
Yeah.
If Tim has no haters, I'm dead.
Yeah. We don't hate actors in this house. We like you. The actor you played sucks.
Yes.
The character that you played
sucks. You played him well.
He's a phenomenal actor because you know, I feel like in real life he'd be a very likable person. Which just makes
he was doing the right
even
thing.
Better when
he's like an average dude. Like that's the thing. He's just like an average dude dealing with like an average situation. He just did the wrong thing. And now we
can't deal with his emotions.
Exactly. Average dude.
Someone needs to get pretty much all of the characters in Star Wars into therapy, but then we would have no story. What is your favorite thing?
I was gonna say if like therapy will never make it into the Empire, so we'll always have a story, but Empires don't do therapy.
Palpatine's outlying therapy, which feels like something he would actually do.
But also he would never benefit from it because he's an psychopath. But anyways,
the therapist would quit. His therapist would need like several therapists.
First of all. even make it.
He hates therapy because if Anakin had gone to therapy, he would have lost.
Or maybe he would have manipulated another emotionally
That's true.
like unstable
That's
young
true.
Jedi. But he wouldn't have found one that had that much power, though.
That's true. And also, Padme would still be alive. So
Thorn
Mon
in his
and Vale would be able to, you know, have her on their side. Palpatine would be gone in a couple of years. She's like, look, part of the reason that you have this power is because I helped you get it. I'll take it away.
I mean, he'd go kicking and screaming and would probably like blow up half the Senate, but I mean, he'd make an impact. He'd go out and you know, flames.
So happy when he died. I'm so happy when he died.
Oh yeah.
What is your favorite thing about Mon Mothma?
Favorite thing about Mon Mothma? Oh, there's so many things that I love. I love Genevieve Riley's portrayal of her, especially like in this show. There's like just so much complex things going behind the scenes, going on in her mind. But the thing that I love the most is her style. I want to raid her wardrobe. And I'm sorry, Mon, but you will have nothing left to wear once I get in there.
So true.
She can steal Perrin's robes. They're fabulous enough that she can make it work. But I want her closet, like her entire closet, for the entirety of her life.
Shout out to Michael Wilkinson for the amazing costume design in Andor. Every time somebody brings up the clothes Mon is wearing, I'm like, huge shout out to this man.
Seriously.
And for Michael Wilkinson.
Brilliant job with like just costumes in general, but Mon Mothma's have just been like the geometry, the like the line work that's in them, the draping, the like the detailing. There's a new still that was posted recently, and like we just got like I don't know, just like the top section of just like it's like her face and like a little bit of like the dress that she's wearing and the necklace, and I'm already obsessed. I already tweeted this morning. I'm like, am I going to be obsessed with Mon Mothma outfits season 2? And like of course, just obsessing over her clothing the entire season.
So real.
Just like season 1.
Real.
But and the clothes like as well, like the like just front and back, just beautiful pieces of artwork that are also like wearable. Like it's not just like a thing where she's just standing, like some of like maybe like Padme's outfits, it was just like she's standing there in this thing and she can barely move. But Mon Mothma's are like wearable, but then also like just beautiful works of art, and I can't wait to see more of it in season 2.
Nice.
And then I want to see the shift where she like turns into a rebel and then like probably has to like let go of some of the fineries, and she'll still be fashionable.
She'll still be fashionable. Like, as I say, the white robe that she has in like Rogue One and Return of the Jedi and everything else, I'm like, it's a classic for a reason. You know? I'm like, she was very much like, she was like, I've got more important things on my mind, and I'm not going to parties, and I'm not in the Senate. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And it's really interesting to see the nods to the outfits that we see her, or I guess just the one that we see her in the movie. Like the still that I was just talking about, like because Mon has like these sort of like necklace things. I don't know what they're called. But there's like different ways that they're incorporating that style of jewelry into her outfits in like new ways, and I love that. Like it's like taking something that is like iconic from, you know, when we first see this character, and then incorporating and adding to it and making it more elaborate in some ways. And I love it because like that sort of like necklace style thing, it's not actually a necklace, it's like attached to her clothing. We've already seen in season 1 with like her white outfit, and I think we also saw it in her like party dress as well, and like incorporated in a different way. It's like, you know, a stylistic jewelry item that makes its way in beautiful ways.
I always liken it to her having like, it's like armor, right? It's like, you know, I have to I have to wear this sort of thing. Like she looks gorgeous in it, but it's like I'm wearing this sort of thing so that I have that level of authority. But then when she's with the rebels, she's like, they're listening to me. Like I don't need to fight to be heard. I can kind of like let down my guard and be a little bit more like on the casual side, you know, which I also love for her because, you know, she could sleep in that outfit. Like the one dress I have that I made from the Rebellion one shot, I joke, I'm like, these are her jammies. And I have actually tested it. I was like, when I was getting the fabric, I was like, yeah, this feels like it could be a pajama material.
Nice.
Go up. Yeah.
Probably like the most comfortable cosplay.
So comfy. And I got to wear little slippers with it too. So
nice.
So I'm going to get to see that in Japan next week.
Nice.
It's only been at Toronto conventions before now. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was
Thank you for having
wonderful. Me. Where can people find you online? Because they should follow you.
I'm at Sue's Theories, both on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. That's sort of like, those 3 places are really like where I'm most found, and where I post like the most.
Delightful.
And then also Temple of Geek. Sorry, I should also plug Temple of Geek. That's I do a lot of like interviews and write articles and podcasts with Temple of Geek and people on the team there, like Kari and Monica. And that's also like another place to like see content from me.
Yeah. Delightful. Thank you. As always, I can be found at Mothma Updates and Bejeweled Mothma on most social media platforms. I deleted Twitter from my phone and then I can't remember the passwords. So it has been months.
Oh no.
And yeah, but it's all good. I'm on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok.
Oh yeah, Blue Sky as well.
Yeah.
Kind of just all the platforms. It's the same user.
Yeah. And then my Mon Mothma panel is 1 week from now, Friday the 8th of April, from 4 to 5 on the fan stage at Star Wars Celebration in Japan. So that will be 4 to 5 p.m. local time in Japan. So depending on where you are in the world, it's not being live streamed. But it will be posted on YouTube at some point. I think it's going to be the day right after the convention. So
that makes sense.
We're looking at Monday the 21st of April for that, because it'll also be the last day of the Andor countdown. And who doesn't want to watch me yap about Mon Mothma for an hour? Thank you one last time, Sue, and everyone at home. And may the Force be with you all.
Thank you. Bye.
It's not stopping.
It's not stopping the recording.
It's not stopping. It wants to keep going.